A good plan is going to create an abundance of business for you that potentially might be well over what you need to make to get to your goals at the end of the year.
Welcome everyone to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. Happy day after Christmas. Hope that you all had a Merry Christmas if you were celebrating yesterday and that you got that gift that you were really hoping for. Maybe it was something physical, or maybe it was something emotional or even mental that you received. And now you're like, yes, I am supercharged and ready to apply into 2025, which is actually what we get to talk about today. Garrett, as always, joins me. I'm Matt, and gosh, we are excited to be with you today. Garrett, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Excited to be here also. I'm ready to go. I got a good night's sleep last night. Last night, not so much. I had one of those like wake up at 2 a.m. What am I doing awake right now? But I might as well be productive. So I just got my day going, which was crazy at 2 o'clock in the morning to think that was a good idea. Dude, I slept like a baby last night. It was great.
Because you were exhausted.
I'm feeling so good today.
That is good. That is good. Speaking of sleep, gosh, man, we had a really awesome success lab earlier this month talking about health, and Justin walked us through all these different metrics, and sleep quality was one of the things that he talked about, which was really interesting versus even like sleep duration. And so if that's something that you guys have been interested in and like, hey, what are the metrics that really can kind of help me fine tune my health? Definitely go into the 11 Circle and check out that success lab. If you're not a member yet, just go to our website, lifeat10tenths.com. You can grab a 7-day free trial and go see that and get all that info from it. But Garrett, let's dive into this plan for 2025. We're not really talking about planning, but execution, because this is where a lot of people maybe misstep. Everybody's got a plan prepared. At least we hope so at this point. We've given them all the tools for that. Now it's like, all right, let's go execute. And what do we need to focus on as we action these things into 2025?
Matt, I love that we're going down this route, because in the years that we have worked with people, and we have started off, it's funny, I was celebrating with one of the gentlemen that I coach our 19th year. Wow. Celebrating the end of the year. We were like, dude, can you believe we're rounding out? Because every year when I'm working with a new person, it's kind of like you round the year out and you're like, well, great year, recapping and everything. And then year two, you kind of acknowledge, you're like, oh, this has been our second year doing this. It's 19 years with this one gentleman. And in these years of watching people end their year, make a business plan, and jump into the new year, one is that the statistics that we watch of people that never look at their business plan again is really high. So that's number one goal, is just continue to look at your business plan. But the second thing is that sometimes the energy that you put into the holiday season and the energy and the excitement that you have with this brand new business plan that you've created, you start implementing it, and sometimes you either get success or you get sold on some other great idea that's happening in the office where they're like, guys, this is working. Come check this out. Look over here. And we go, oh, I'm dropping this plan and I'm going that way. And Matt, I think what we want to work on today and kind of talk about is don't deviate from the plan that you've put in place. And then there's a good chance it's going to start creating some business here, and the holidays might start creating some business. And be prepared for that too, that you're going to have these distractions of success potentially start coming in. And that's probably the thing that kills the plan and the actual schedule that's been put in place faster than anything is actually success. It's funny that would be the thing that's going to get in your way the most.
Well, that's what starts the roller coaster, right? You all are familiar with the real estate roller coaster, and it doesn't start
so much fun.
Yeah, and it never starts on the no business thing. It never starts when you're just like, oh man, things are quiet. The real estate roller coaster gets going when you're like, whoa, things are getting really, really amazing, and now you're going to go on this ride. And what happens is you stop doing things, and then down the road, all of a sudden it's like, wait, why are we in this valley? And Garrett, we have this rule called the 45-day rule, which basically says it really takes 45 days of consistent action before you start to see legitimate results from that action. And so as we go into 25, even if you're seeing early responses to this, Garrett, it's probably what did we do in December that created that? And if you then pull away from that action plan, you're going to miss the opportunity to analyze it as you get deep into February and even towards March to see like, hey, are these things that I've implemented actually working? Because the results we're seeing early on, cool, could be early results, but if we want to really get the good measure of it, we got to give it that time of execution, right?
Yeah, well, I started to see, and this is where it really got my attention, that when you brought up this idea for us to talk about today, I was like, well, it's interesting because back in late November, early December, about 45 days going into the new first part of this year, I started to watch people have business start to pick up. Not everybody. I mean, I would watch a pod of people in an office, and I'd watch 2 of them all of a sudden kick off, and 3 of them kind of sit around going, I guess I'm kind of seeing some business. But when I said kick off, like I watched people that all of a sudden were putting like 5 new listings in this week, 7 deals in escrow right now. Like, oh my gosh, like the floodgates have opened up. And that's usually one of my first signs of the real estate roller coaster, Matt. That's one of those like, okay, we can easily get sucked into all of this business that we're working on right now, which is, I get it. We want to take care of our people. We want to bring the best, highest level because that is our future business. And those are the people that are going to rave about us and refer us. But there's this underlying system that we need to make sure is happening because without fail, when we watch that huge kickoff, it's usually about 45, maybe 60 days later, we'll have the conversation with somebody, Matt, and they're like, has something changed? I feel like something's different in the market. Like, did the rates change a little bit? Or like, what's kind of going on? I'm like, no, it's you. But it's okay. We can fix it.
Yeah, it is. And I like that you brought up this time of year because we do have several people who are having these really kind of, I'll call them an unusual December, right? Where there's a lot of...
Wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to happen.
Everybody
right?
said it wasn't supposed to happen. The election was going to happen. It was going to be dead all the way through the holidays, and then January was going to be the kickoff. Not the case.
Yeah, and what's interesting is it starts to highlight some. We had when we talked on a podcast. This was maybe a couple years ago. We talked about holes in the boat and how when you slow down, you start to find the holes in the front of the boat. But when you're actually going really fast too, you find some of these other holes like, oh gosh, I don't have this process in place. I don't have this process in place. And one of the elements we talked about in our business planning series was identifying roadblocks. We actually did a whole podcast on it just recently. And one of those roadblocks that could slow you down is success. Like, oh my gosh, what will happen if all of this business actually comes together the way I expect? Do we have the systems and processes in place to handle it so that I can continue executing on the things that are drawing that in? And as realtors, particularly, you guys wear all the hats. And so, yeah, your time's going to get sucked somewhere. And if there's a deal that's going on and it needs your attention, of course you're going to go spend that time to it. But the question I have for you is, what can you put in place so that either we can start to minimize some of those things that come up, or to make sure that we still have the time or the processes to execute on the things that are working for us? And Garrett, the number one thing we see is like people just kind of stop talking to their people, or they just stop their marketing altogether when all of a sudden their business gets going, right? And so what are some things that you've seen with some people that you're like, hey, how are we keeping that consistent?
Well, so let me first go back to what you were saying there is like sometimes we see like stop making phone calls. Usually what else, marketing, the creation, if you're creating your own postcards, like if you are doing all that yourself, that will stop almost the first thing. Like that is the one thing that you're like, damn it, I'm supposed to make a postcard this week and it didn't happen. Okay, we'll get one going for next week. And then it's all of a sudden 2 weeks passes. And then all of a sudden we'll be on a coaching call with somebody, Matt. And I'm like, I haven't seen a postcard from you in a while. And they're like, oh yeah. Yep, that kind of fell by the wayside. I got to get back on that. It's been 4 months. Like by the time I notice that postcards aren't coming in, it's like, I feel like I haven't seen his face for a while. Like we were potentially off the rails by that point in time. So we got to be very careful. Phone calls will then typically happen after that, where all of a sudden we're just not finding time to sit down and call the people that we want to call. And you'll see this with your family too. It's like all of a sudden your family's going, are we going to see you for dinner tonight? Like, are we going to see you? Like, are you going to be able to make it to the kids' game? It's like, if you're not making it to that stuff, I guarantee you're not calling the people in your sphere of influence being like, hey, how's it going? Like, what you been up to lately? Like, that's not happening either. You're just caught in the momentum of this business. So I think, to get ahead of it, I mean, obviously there's ways to say, okay, do I have people in play so that when I do get busy, these things can be still managed and taken care of. I think having somebody do your postcards for you and not have you do it is a huge, huge, huge savior. And again, there's the give and take to that. You might have well, it's not personalized to me. Yeah, but it's still going to go out. So let's keep that in mind. A lot of agents that I've found, the biggest thing that actually helps them is actually teaming up with other brokers. And when I say that, that's not a linked in arms, we're a team, we're all splitting commissions, we're all not that kind of stuff. Like I'm talking about having trusted people in their business so that when that piece of business or that flow of business comes to a certain level, they can either bring somebody in on a listing with them and say, hey, do you want to team up with me on this listing? Or can you handle this piece of business right now and just give me a referral fee on it? And just start churning business in that way. And there's a business around that. There's a whole plan that you can build around that. Because I know a lot of people go, well, why would I give business away that's coming to me and just take a referral fee on it? Because like I could have the whole business. Well, you can, but then you sometimes also stop doing your systems, which stops the future business. So it's a kind of a catch-22 that if you handle it right, you got to look far enough down the road. We did a whole podcast on that one too. We have a lot of podcasts we need to redo. When you said holes in the boat, Matt, I was like, holes in the boat. And then you said when you come off plane, I was like, that was a great one. Like, when did we do that? Like we'll find out later.
Because now between the two of us, we're like in the 620 episode range of podcasts that we've put out there. I think, you're going through all these different methods and I think highlighting in that partnering with other agents, this is really key, particularly if you are in that $100,000 to $200,000 range right now. You're probably in a space where you're like, man, I don't really have the net income to be able to support maybe a full-time assistant. Maybe I can do a VA type thing. Hopefully you have a transaction coordinator at that point. But at that range, you can benefit from the value of those partnerships incredibly, particularly if you partner with other people who are in that range. Because if you're doing that level of business, you're probably doing pretty well. You kind of know what you're doing and you have some systems and processes in place. It's a lot to handle. But likelihood too, when you look at the roller coasters, if we took at all these agents together, they're at the different highs and lows at different times. Sometimes they're on the same roller coaster, but a lot of times they're on different ones. So while you're at a peak, there might be somebody else who's doing the same amount annually as you, who's in a valley, who you can work together. And all of a sudden you start to flatten your roller coasters together and you have more consistent income with each other. And you probably are going to be able to then push over that 200,000 mark together just by being available. And it even could just be like, yeah, I got 3 buyers I'm trying to handle this weekend. I can't show them all. Cool. Let me take one of them. Right. And yeah, you give up a little of the commission potentially for that, but you have somebody you trust and you actually then get the commission versus them going and finding somebody else. Cause it's about being able to provide that service to the customer and the client versus how do I keep all these people for me? And here's the cool thing too, Garrett. Sometimes people will wait. Like if they love you, they'll be like, oh no, we can wait, but let's not wait. Let's elevate that experience by working with 1 or 2 other people that we really love. And Garrett, I've seen it most of the time. I'd say 80%, we'll be generous here. 80% of the time, agents have somebody else in their office. They're like, oh, I would totally trust this person. Right?
Oh yeah.
So
when I ask them, like, give me a couple agents in your office you would totally trust to be able to send maybe one of your clients to, and they're like, oh yeah, I've got 1 or 2, or they're people are definitely there. I love that you brought up that like not everybody's on the roller coaster at the same time, Matt. And I think a lot of us give a lot of credit to the marketplace. And we go like, oh, the market is allowing this right now. More often than not, it's you. You're the person that actually created that business.
Let's take December as an example, right? We know people who are having an incredible month this year. Probably I've seen some agents with their best December they've ever had. And then there's some other people that are like, yeah, like I talked to an agent yesterday, like got my last closing for the year on the books and kind of got one other set for January. So I'm probably in a space where I could maybe start to fill that pipeline back up again. I'm like, cool. Like if you and this other person were in the same office, I was like, let's pair you two together because this person needs help and you're looking for some things to do. perfect.
So here's the funny thing about the roller coaster in an office. If you're the agent that's up on top, you're riding the ride, you are, hair blown in the wind right now, you got your arms up, you're like, woo, here we go. You don't notice that everybody else is maybe not riding the ride like you are. You don't see it. And I'll be coaching somebody and I'll say to them, like, is everybody else like having this level of business or what's going on? They're like, I think everybody's doing really well. It's like until they look at the books or look at the numbers of their office, like, oh my gosh, like maybe not everybody is doing a lot of business right now. It's funny when you're not riding the roller coaster. I remember being in a real estate office and all of a sudden Jerry walks in going, got another one under contract. And you're like, I don't like you, Jerry. Like, I'm not riding the ride right now. Like I am scraping by everything that I can possibly do to try to make a living right now. And he's just like, got another one. And I'm like, what makes you so special? Like, and when he's riding the ride, when you're not riding the ride, believe me, you see those people all over the place. It doesn't work the opposite way. When you're on the ride, you don't typically see the people that aren't really doing a lot of business right now. It just doesn't compute.
Well, and that brings up an opportunity. If you are in that lull, like look for the people who are riding high and just say, hey, is there anything I can do to help you? Is there something I can do to... Many times they might be like, no, I'm good because we got big egos in this industry. I get it. But, you might find someone who's like, actually, I could use some help.
I think it's bigger. I think the strength lies in the person that actually has a lot of deals going right now, that has a lot of momentum, or they're seeing it start to pick up. It is their responsibility to go to maybe an agent that is not seeing that business and say, hey, let's go out to lunch real quick. I want to talk to you and open up a conversation here. So that as we go forward, if I need help, I just want to know what I can rely on you for. That's the person that has that power to be able to do that. The agent that's not doing anything right now, running around in the coattails going, hey, like, do you need anything? Like, can I help you out with anything? Like, of course, the answer of the senior agent who's got a lot, or maybe not even senior, the one who's got a lot going on right now, of course their answer is going to be like, no, I'm good, man. I got it all under control. Because they don't want to admit that, like, yeah, man, I need help right now. Like, I'm so happy we talked a couple months back and we have a plan in place so that when this time came, like, we could have this dialogue and have this conversation. So I think the power lies in the person that is riding the ride right now.
Totally
it's
agree.
very difficult for you and that's where I was saying, this is why it's difficult. Because the person that's riding the ride doesn't realize that there's people around them that aren't doing a lot of business right now. They kind of they never give themselves the credit. It's got to be the market. So it's like, it really has to be something planned ahead. And this is why the roller coaster happens and we don't get ahead of this is when you're crazy and you're on fire to try to build that relationship and make that happen. You're really going to wait till a downtime to be like, man, I don't want to do that again. Okay, next time, I heard Matt and Garrett. Next time, I'm going to build this relationship and get it in place. And then all of a sudden, you're riding the top of the roller coaster again. You're just getting ready to crest the top, and you're like, oh, crap. I didn't set myself up for this again. Okay, well, here we go. And we're back down the other side again. So I think that it really, the power is in the agent that potentially is setting themselves up for that to get those pieces in place.
I agree. And so kind of coming back to where we started here with how do you maintain into 2025? I'd say one of the things that you should have in place if you don't already is just a weekly planning meeting with yourself. Not only just to plan out your calendar, because many of you might do that, but to take your own temperature and forecast what's going on so you can say, like, how am I feeling? Like, how am I doing with my time management? How am I doing with my follow through? How well am I doing with that minimum standard I set for these actions that truly will grow my business? And if you meet with yourself weekly on this, you're going to be able to catch yourself before you start screaming down that roller coaster into the valley. And you're going to be able to be like, wait, okay, see that I'm starting to get overwhelmed because I'm starting to kind of miss my standard a little bit. Okay, what do I need to change? How do I need to adjust? What can I also maneuver in my schedule coming up here so that I can make up for this a little bit? That weekly meeting, Garrett, I find so crucial. And I know we've worked with people when that weekly meeting doesn't happen. We're like, okay, give it, a few weeks of that not happening. And it's like, all right, we're back to just like, Hey, let's just kind of see what's going on. I'm just going to fly by the seat of my pants, so to speak.
We talked about red flags a while back, Matt, and that's like one of our red flags. When that weekly meeting doesn't come in, or they don't have that meeting with themselves, it's like, okay, that's a red flag for us as a coach. It's like, it's like, okay. And it's funny because you'll hear somebody go, yeah, it's okay. This week got away from me. This week got away, but it's no big deal. I've got all my systems in place. I got all my stuff, and I'm making my phone calls, got my notes going out, got all my stuff. We're good. And I'm like, oh, okay, like that's good. Like, and I'll make a little note. Speaking of the 45-day rule, I'll make a little note in the calendar and just be like, oh, check in on that one. Because usually what'll happen is 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks go past where all of a sudden those aren't coming in. Then it's all of a sudden it's like 45 days and they're going, I don't know what happened. And it's like, well, it's funny. About 45 days ago, you decided to stop having your meeting with yourself every week. And it is a critical meeting, Matt. We've watched it be a game changer for a lot of people. It brings peace. It brings calm. You get a chance to feel like you have some sort of control over what's going on, even though the control is kind of a good luck. But at the end of the day, you really feel like you're at least in the driver's seat. And it's a 1 hour Monday morning, I find, is the best. We've talked a lot about what are the best days to do this on, but I usually find Monday morning, first thing, sit down, get that week lined up, get everything in play. You will have a much better chance of making sure you execute on the plan that you have in place.
Well, just from personal experience, being able to look at the metrics that you've set for yourself. Because, hey, Garrett and I are not perfect. Like, we flow in and out of this stuff as well. That's why we know it so well, because we experience the same thing. And I will say, when I look at numbers that I set for myself and like, hey, these are the standards that I want to hit each week, when I look and see that they're not happening, I'm like, it changes that week ahead. I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to get that going. And so like the calendar and the schedule, like the appointments are already there a lot of the times. Like people are like, oh, why should I wait until Monday to plan my week? No, you planned your week. This is making sure that plan can happen. This is making sure that like, yes, everything that needs to be on there is on there. And this is where I'm going to do these things. Because and typically what happens is when I get a few good weeks of like, cool, I'm hitting those standards, I'm hitting it. And then all of a sudden I miss a week of tracking or whatever, then it's like, something's off, right? And you got to get yourself back in. So we know from personal experience about these things, but track those minimum standards you set for yourself, because that's going to be the biggest indicator on whether or not you're going to be able to grow through these 45 days, or you're going to get to the end of those 45 days and be like, why isn't this working? It was like, well, we can see, because you set a standard of X, but you actually were only doing C, which is a long way away from X if we're looking at the alphabet.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're not seeing results at 45 days. It isn't that the system didn't work. It's that you didn't work the system you created.
Yeah. Because I mean, I know a lot of people right now, I know a lot of people going into 2025 have the plan of, I'm really going to own real estate reviews this year. I'm going to sit down and do these portfolio impact reports and really show people like what's going on with their real estate. I want to be that realtor in 2025. Those are one of those things that if you don't have a well-executed plan and you're not coming back and focusing and staying on top of it, it's so easy for a week to go past and 2 real estate reviews didn't go out, to all of a sudden look back and be like, oh my gosh, like I had this great plan of all these people, but that just didn't come together. Yeah. It's easy to get off track on those types of things that can be so powerful, like so impactful to your business. And we just got to make sure, again, between a weekly meeting with yourself, Matt, I think going back to your plan during your weekly meeting, I know a lot of people talk about, like, as you just said, like I've got like a plan and I've got a schedule and I've got part of your weekly meeting is to pull out your actual business plan and to look at your GPS and to be able to go, okay, where am I right now? And I know I'm only a week into this trip of a very long journey, but like, how's this car holding up? Like, is this thing, I mean, you don't really know the car's roadworthy until you get on the road and you're like, okay, like we're seeing we got some weaknesses here. Started to overheat a little bit already. That's a little concerning. We can try to figure out what's going on. Like, there's some things you need to kind of check the pulse on fairly early to make sure as you start this year and this plan is like, is this starting to fit into place? Is this feeling good? Have I built a plan that's going to overwhelm me? Have I built a plan that is actually executionable? Like, what are we up against here? And we just need to check in, because otherwise, again, this is why a month down the road, a lot of people aren't even looking at their plans anymore, and they're winging it, and they're wondering why they're getting the years they had, or they're having the same year they had the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before, because we're very consistent. Very consistent.
Well, so guys, let this be the sign, if you're listening to this before the start of the new year, to just kind of revisit, did I finish my plan? Do I have it calendared out? Do I have the tools in place to help myself stay on track and understand where I am at in terms of tracking my actions and those standards? And if you don't, then now's the time to put that stuff into place. And then look at, as we were talking about there with the success, look at, okay, well, what would happen if this really works and I have all this business? What help might I need? And go foster those relationships now so that they're in place just in case. Because best case scenario, you get busy and you're able to handle it. Fantastic. No big deal. Worst case scenario, you get busy and everything falls apart. But if you have some people on deck, it's like, cool, I could just go call Garrett and be like, Garrett, man, I am swamped. What's things look like for you? I got this going on. Is there any way you can jump in and help me with this?
Let me add this one last thought in, Matt, is that the plan, it's very hard to create a business plan that brings you just enough business to hit your goals. Like that, just enough, like that you're like feathering the gas pedal going, yeah. Oh no, we got just enough coming in. We're going to be good. We're going to get there. A good plan is going to create an abundance of business for you that potentially might be well over what you need to make to get to your goals at the end of the year. And that is actually what you want to be actually focusing on building, is an abundance of business coming in, which means you're not going to need it all. You're going to take what you need to get to the goals and build the life that you want to have. And the rest of it, we got to figure out a plan for. That's a much, much, much safer plan to continually and always build the life and the goals and the dreams that you have in front of you, rather than just enough. Just enough is a little bit scary for a lot of people. It's a little bit of, I hope we're going to make it. I think we're going to get there. I think it's going to happen. If everything kind of falls into place right now, we're going to hit our goals. Like that's not how anybody wants to go into checking off their goals. You want to go through sprinting through the finish line, hands in the air, ripping the banner apart and being like, I've arrived. And you still got energy to run an extra mile if you really had to run it, because you've been planning and you're ready and you're set up and you took care of yourself and you had a good plan put in place. That's what I would encourage people to go into this year with, is don't do the just enough. Let's get this thing rocking and rolling. Let's get this business up and running. If you create an abundance of business, an overflow business, let's handle that. That's the thing that we're actually hoping for, is we get there. Yeah. And then we'll figure out how do we feather the gas pedal and create what we need so we're not completely going crazy, because that's the win. We can do that. Can't happen.
Totally. I mean, a just enough plan will get you a just enough life.
Yes.
And that's probably not enough for most people. So
wrapping up this episode, Matt, by the way, great topic. I love this. And I think a lot of people need to hear this going into this new year. For those of you that have not created a business plan yet, you know exactly who you are out there. We have a business plan for you. It is in the 11 Circle. Just come to Life at 10 join the 11 Circle. There's a trial in there where you can come in, get your business plan if you want to. You can actually work it all the way out. We had a lot of people, Matt, this year that jumped in, checked out the community. We had some great conversations with people, and they're like, right now, I'm just going to take the business plan and run with this. And that's totally okay. Hopefully, we'd love you to stay longer. But that option is there for you right now. If you're listening to this and you don't have a plan, don't go farther through this year. Don't go into the new year going, oh my gosh, I'm just going to wing this one and do it again. I've had a lot of people go, this is the first year I've ever built a business plan. And I'm so grateful for that. Like that's a win right there. So come check it out. And then try to think of anything else. What else we got, Matt? Anything else
we got a lot of stuff, guys. Come find us, find Garrett on Instagram, find me on Instagram. You can search for Garrett Fry. You can search for Matt Benelli. You're going to find us. Connect with us. If you guys got questions, shoot us a message, shoot us an email. we're here to help you guys succeed. So whatever you got, bring it to us. We probably have a solution for you, even if it's just a conversation to help you move forward. So we're here for you guys. We appreciate you guys listening in. I will say the one biggest thing that you guys can do, because I'm so grateful for everybody, Garrett, who tunes in, is this is not our final episode of the year. We've got one episode that'll be released before 2025 kicks off, but I'm just so grateful for everybody. And the one thing I'll ask is, if you do find value out of this, share it with someone else. Cause I'm still finding people, Garrett, who are like, oh, I didn't know that you guys made it, started a new podcast and all this stuff. And we love supporting people. So if you guys get value out of this and you're listening now or you're watching on YouTube, share it with somebody who you feel would get some great value out of it too, because the more value we can all share together, the better this industry is going to be, the better all the industries are going to be, because we have better professionals out there serving people, and it's going to make just a lot of people happier. So we really appreciate that.
I love it. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you tons, and we will be back soon.